This is Gertie the Dinosaur. She's a little shy. She likes to dance. And at times, she's a little naughty. This animated short film isn't just about a dinosaur doing circus tricks. It represents a groundbreaking moment in animation history that would change the art form forever. Humans have been telling stories since the dawn of time, but getting those stories to move, that's a more recent development. In the early days of animation, imagination and invention were combined in some wonderfully weird ways. Let me introduce you to the quirky ancestors of modern animation. The magic lantern, the thaumatrope, the phenakistoscope, the zoetrope, the flipbook, the praxinoscope, and the zoopraxiscope. These devices laid the groundwork for traditional animation and proved that you could create the illusion of motion with only 2D images. And while artists like J. Stuart Blackton and Emil Cole further refined the animation process, it wouldn't be until an artist named Winsor McCay created the short film Gertie the Dinosaur that animation would be elevated into the art form we recognize today. But more on that later. Growing up in Spring Lake, Michigan, Winsor McCay was obsessed with art. His drawing skills were noted at an early age, and he's even quoted saying, "I just couldn't stop drawing anything and everything." However, his father didn't place much value on his son's artistic abilities and instead sent him to study business at Cleary Business College in Ypsilanti, Michigan. Though this would be short-lived, as McCay would often skip class to draw portraits at the Wonderland and Eden Museum. He quickly garnered attention for his drawing skills and was approached by drawing professor John Goodison of Michigan State Normal College. John Goodison offered McCay private art classes, teaching him perspective and observational drawing. This passion for drawing led McCay to excel in the art world. He was prolific. He illustrated posters and pamphlets at the National Printing and Engraving Company, drew dime portraits for museums in Cincinnati, created editorial illustrations for the Cincinnati Commercial Tribune, Life, and the Cincinnati Enquirer. He wrote and illustrated comic strips for the Enquirer, New York Herald, and the New York Evening Telegram. And then, after achieving success in the vaudeville circuit, McCay learned to animate, and it was this work that McCay says he was the most proud of. Hand-drawn animation, also called traditional animation, is an incredibly laborious art form. While artists like Blackton and Cole set the groundwork, Winsor McCay pioneered a number of new methods, one of which he called the McCay split system. Instead of just explaining it, let me show you how it works. Within the McCay split system, there are 3 types of drawings. First, you have the keyframes, but back then McCay named these the extremes. Then you have your split drawing, or as we call them today, the breakdown. This pose describes how we move from point A to point B. Do we move like this, or like this? Then you'll finish the sequence by drawing the poses between the extreme and the split, which he called the in-betweens. This process created the illusion of motion, and it revolutionized the art form. And with this new technique, animators could make audiences believe that the characters they were seeing weren't a work of fiction, but that they were alive. Wait, but what does this have to do with Gertie the Dinosaur? This has everything to do with Gertie the Dinosaur. Check this out. Back then, animation used to look like this. You'll notice that this short film by J. Stuart Blackton titled Humorous Phases of Funny Faces is a sequence of extreme poses. Or take a look at this film by Emil Cole titled Phantasmagory. I want you to focus on the movement of the main character. While the poses are great, the timing is a little choppy, and so the movement feels stiff. While these films are important to the history of animation, they lacked the fluid movement and lifelike quality that Gertie the Dinosaur had. Like even the timing of Gertie's breathing. McCay achieved this by first timing his own breathing and then mirroring Gertie's to his. McCay drew 64 drawings of Gertie inhaling and 32 drawings of her exhaling to create a sequence of movement that he could repeat over and over again to save on time and drawing materials. He's quoted saying, "I only drew her breathing once, but I photographed that set of drawings over 15 times. This process called cycling was another system McCay invented. It's these little details that make Gertie and the world she lives in feel so rich and alive. But these aren't the only qualities Gertie had that made her different. She also had personality. Gertie the Dinosaur was part animated film, part vaudeville act, created by McCay in 1914. McCay would stand on stage and interact with Gertie, who was projected onto the screen behind him. He would ask her to stand up or bow, and sometimes she would listen, and other times she would throw a tantrum. Gertie the Dinosaur's charm didn't lie in its design or how well the backgrounds were drawn, but in the believable way that Gertie and McCay interacted with each other. In some ways, McCay animated a relationship that everyone can relate to. You know, like when your parents tell you to do something and instead of listening, you ignore them. It's these real human moments that we can all relate to that makes McCay's work so influential on the art form. McCay worked on Gertie the Dinosaur from 1913 to 1914, even hiring his next-door neighbor John A. Fitzsimmons as his assistant. Fitzsimmons was responsible for tracing the backgrounds onto thousands of pieces of rice paper in black ink. And by the end of production, McCay had drawn roughly 10,000 drawings of Gertie to make about 5 minutes of animation. Gertie the Dinosaur premiered at the Palace Theater in Chicago in February 1914, receiving glowing reviews. While some audience members were initially skeptical of the vaudeville act, even suggesting that Gertie was not a drawing, but a papier-mâché animal with men inside of it, audiences eventually realized they were seeing something new and groundbreaking. McCay would go on to create a number of animated films, though he would eventually stop due to his intense comic strip workload. There has also been speculation that another reason he quit was due to his frustration with the state of contemporary animation and the way it was perceived by fellow artists and audiences. He's quoted saying, "Artists haven't yet taken animation seriously enough. When they do, they will make some marvelous pictures." And he couldn't have been more right, because as time went on, artists began to improve upon his methods, pushing the limits of what the medium could do. Like Walt Disney and his core group of animators, the 9 Old Men, who improved upon the McCay split system and developed the 12 principles of animation, principles that animators continue to use today. McCay's legacy is firmly cemented in animation history, and it's because of groundbreaking creations like Gertie the Dinosaur that we have iconic characters who have made us laugh, made us cry, and continue to inspire and entertain us today.